Hey guys, it's Christina. You're watching Vox and Guest, and I have holy guests today. We are talking to Shovel Monsters. Say hi, guys.
Hey,
Yo,
how's it going?
So we've got Mick, and I think I'm going to go with calling you MoJo because it's there. And
yeah,
it's cool. Not that Joseph isn't cool, but MoJo is just, it seems cooler to me. So I'm going to probably go with MoJo. So thank you guys so much for joining me today. I have been eagerly awaiting this interview because I feel like you two have just a level of metal, which we'll be talking about a lot today. That was like a whole awakening for me, music, and I mean that in the best way. So I just first wanted to you've probably been asked this question a bajillion times, but I'll just get it out of the way, and then we'll get to the more interesting stuff. Okay,
Mhm.
so has Disney ever approached you guys to do a soundtrack or
Not currently,
no? You might just be
unfortunately.
missing those phone messages. I don't know. It seems like such a natural, you know, like the Wish song from a princess movie or something. And you
It's a
just
small
guys just,
world,
yeah, exactly. It's a small, bloody, grotesque, deeply intense world or
Yeah.
whatever. So no Disney, you're not, or Pixar even, nothing like that. I don't know.
No, I don't think there's too many people that know about us, to be honest.
Well, hopefully this will change that. But I'm not entirely sure that's true anyway. At least I know in our community, you guys are. That's a name you hear a lot, and you don't forget it either. And so I'm going to start with that one. Where did the name Shovel Monster come from? Because it's awesome.
I appreciate it. Yeah. It really just was. It's not like one of those great stories, but
Okay. I'll take a
just
shitty story. It's okay.
yeah, it was just what obviously what can we name our band? What can we do? And the original singer and myself, we came up with one name, and it was kind of to me it was a decent name, but it was kind of like, to me, it sounded a little more like a hardcore band or maybe metalcore or something. So I was like,
Okay,
that's not really what we're gonna be doing. So
gotcha.
then my my son plays that game Shovel Knight, and
Okay.
he said that at the same time period he said that, and I've I mean, you know the old song Mud Shovel by Stained, right?
Yeah, I know of it. Yeah,
Yeah, but I love that name, just Mud Shovel,
Mud
just sounds
Shovel.
badass, right? But I'm not gonna name my band Mud Shovel and everybody think I'm a cover band,
Right, right.
Stain cover band.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, but I've
You'd
always
only
liked
have
that,
like 3 songs to play that people would know anyway. So yeah, right.
right? Yeah, but yeah, I've always liked that word shovel, and just kind of at the same period that we're trying to figure out a name, my son was talking about Shovel Knight, and I was like, shovel, yeah, that's right. And then I was like, what could go with shovel, and we just, I don't know, and eventually stumbled upon Monster, and
Monster.
it's like Shovel Monster, and my original singer was like, "Yeah, that's pretty sweet." So we just kind of went with that.
And you thought that wasn't a great story.
I mean, it wasn't. No, I mean, it's not as cool as some, but and originally too, going off the name, we never, in the beginning, especially, like, it wasn't like, oh, let's come up with this name, and then we have this name that's kind of like character, I guess,
Mm.
and so we just did our thing just as that's the band, and then I was like, you know what, that'd be kind of cool to have like a mascot, and
Yeah, yeah.
and
yeah,
so then
mascot.
yeah, so
Mascot, just a
and
foam
so that,
head,
yeah, well then, right, I don't know how far you've been, we've been following each other, but we did I think it was back in October, we did like a little contest with all the followers on Facebook and said,
Mhm.
hey, come up with a name for our mascot, and we'll give you I think I gave him a free T-shirt of the new album art.
Ooh, that's a good gift. You guys have kick-ass merch, which I have my eye on. Trust me. So I don't want to interrupt you, but that's a good raffle gift. So okay,
Yeah,
yeah,
I
I
appreciate
wasn't
it.
around
Yeah.
in October. I think I've only been around since like March or April. So,
Okay.
so they
I think
did
it's
you
been
get a
farther than
name?
that.
Did you get a name for the
So
mascot?
yeah, well, so I don't know how much you know about Day 9, but it's basically it kind of tells a story, kind of like this new album, but it's kind of goes into the backstory of like why he became a killer essentially, and
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah,
so
we're gonna get to all of that.
yeah, and so basically his name is actually Shane, So because he's a normal guy that turns into a lunatic, you know.
Right. Yeah.
But so
Okay.
yeah, we came up with Shane, and he's the shovel monster.
Well, there you go, Shane. I like it. There's alliteration. Shane the Shovel Monster.
Yeah.
Sounds like something you would see on like a "Hi, my name is," "Hi, my name is Shane the Shovel Monster." Yeah,
Yeah.
no, that's so I'm whoever won that they got a really cool shirt, so I'm a little bit jealous.
Yeah.
It's okay. So just to frame this out for anybody who's watching that doesn't know the band yet, so Mick, you're obviously remaining founding member, and then you've got the guitar, the bass, the lyrics, and then MoJo, you are fairly new to the party. A couple months now, I guess, and you're handling the vocals and some of the lyrics too, I think, right?
That's right. Yes, that's right. I'm doing most of the lyrics and the vocals. He's kind enough to let me do all the lyrics so far.
Well, actually that. Yeah, sorry. Go ahead, Mick.
Oh no, the first song I think because Randall was essentially he was gonna carry over to the next album, but I was thinking a little bit more long term and trying to do some shows, and so I thought he's a great vocalist, but I just need somebody closer to be able to eventually do some shows and stuff, and so he kind of started it, but he actually did the lyrics. But I started the song with the lyrics, and so I did the beginning few sentences or something like that on that first song, and then he took over. And then I've asked him, whenever you need help, just let me know. And he's been fine. He's done it all on his own so far. So we're finishing the third song right now.
Okay.
So we're almost halfway with the album already. So.
It's very exciting. I mean, so because I know that you, so Chad Case came out just almost 2 weeks ago, and so you said you're going to be releasing a new song about every 6 weeks. Is that still the plan?
It was the original plan, but we've been able to keep up with maybe every 30 days. So we're trying to do every 4 weeks.
Okay, so that means we have a new one coming pretty soon. Right?
Yeah, there's one that I put up there to pre-save. That'll be, I think it's July 3rd.
Is it on DistroKid?
Yes.
DistroKid chaps my ass because for some reason, and sorry, DistroKid, I know you're great in a great many ways, but you will not let me pre-save anything. I open all these things and I'm trying to pre-save and it won't give me a login screen. It won't give me whatever. So that is why I have not seen that, but I will have to keep an eye out. July 3rd. That's good.
July 3rd. Yeah. Well, and
your fireworks.
Yeah. Well, I know it too, just for you in the future too, if you have any links, you know how on Facebook you can just put paste the link and then it'll pop up. What I do is I usually just put like the cover of that. I'll actually put that first and then put the link because usually it'll stay in Facebook if you just paste the link.
Right.
And
okay.
So I put a photo of it and then paste the link, and then it typically it'll go outside of Facebook that way. And
yeah, that's where I run into trouble. I get to the DistroKid site and I have the little pre-save thing and they're like, do you want to share your email address with the artist? And I'm like, sure, why not? Make their day. And then I go to click and then nothing happens. So that is my own personal drama. I will have to deal with that myself. I'll
did that therapy
and it's not just me.
It finally stopped doing it. Actually, on this last one, I was able to actually finally pre-save a song for a change. It usually
do it
either.
So I just have to wear it down emotionally. Yeah. Okay. All right. I can do that. I can persist until the technology gives in. So there's a lot to talk about here. And I kind of wanted to frame this conversation from the standpoint that, I say this a lot, but, I just sort of fell into the indie metal community a couple months ago. I still don't remember how it happened. And I'm grateful that I did, but it's all been sort of a blur for me. And I used to think that I did listen to some metal, and I had no idea the complexity of subgenres and, what makes something death metal versus black metal versus speed metal and so on. And so, every time I'm listening to metal artists, I'm sort of trying to figure out what genre of metal they are. And can't do it for the life of me. No clue, not a single clue. And I feel okay about that because even when I ask metal artists, like, okay, so how do you know if this is this or this is that? Nobody gives me the same answer twice. So I figure nobody knows what the fuck is going on and it's not just me. But if you had to define Shovel Monster as a subgenre of metal, if you even do that, what would you, are you modern death? Are you black? Or what would you consider yourselves?
Well, going back on that genre, it doesn't, who cares really, right? I mean,
I hear you. As long as the music's good, it doesn't really matter. But there seems to be a lot of attention to this issue.
I mean, certain people, you know, certain people are snobs about it, you know, and
the gatekeepers.
Right.
Gotcha.
But I mean, I guess if you put us, the closest thing, if anything, would probably be like deathcore.
Okay.
But I don't know.
You don't care.
I don't care about that stuff. I don't know everything about all that. I know it's deathcore is a mixture of death metal and metalcore, but I'm just kind of going on, I guess, kind of the type of music that I like, and what I listen to, I guess.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, so that's, I guess, the best answer I could give on that.
Well, and I like that too, because I think that, you know, genre can be identifying, but it can also be limiting, right? So if someone says, oh, well, you know, you can't do that because you're this kind of metal versus that kind of metal, and my response to that would probably be, well, screw that, I can do whatever I want, you know, I'm making my own music. And so I appreciate that. But where I was going with the larger question, because I wanted to see if you had a preference of genre, and you don't, and I think that's cool too, is that your music, out of all of the metal that I've been listening to for the last couple months especially, is probably some of the most aggressive, heavy, boot to the face kind of music that I've heard. And what's cool for me is that, you know, somebody coming into, you know, a genre like metal where there is so much going on and there are so many different, you know, iterations of it, you know, it's I feel like I'm getting an education, you know, and my approach with music in general is just, first of all, unless it outright sucks, which I haven't come across yet, thankfully, in this indie community, you know, there's always something that you can connect to and find a way into. And for me as a singer, usually I key into lyrics first, and I'm starting to develop an ear for the lyricism of metal, but it is not the most accessible point, at least to me, in the genre, right? I mean, a lot of times there's, you know, there's all this distortion. It's kind of, you know, sometimes it's mixed back, or, you know, because there's just so much going on with the low end, and then the high end, the treble is just so out there. Like, you know, you really have to work sometimes to get and that's why I love the lyric videos, because I'm like, okay, I think he's saying, is that my leg over there? But I'm not entirely sure. And then I'm like, yes, check your work, I'm good. But so my very long-winded point is that I think it's very interesting to me that the vocals are so distinctive in metal, and especially in your whatever genre of metal you want to call it. It really, I think your vocals have, and I understand you've had different vocalists, and MoJo is new, relatively speaking, but it's so distinctive. And I'm kind of curious, MoJo, for you, how is it stepping into, you know, just being the vocalist, being so responsible for something that is really kind of signature in the sound? And I mean, you do have a different sound from the previous two singers, which I think is great too. So if you could figure out what the question in there was, I'll give you a cookie. But it was basically, first of all, how the hell do you do what you do? Because I'm always impressed by the vocalizing in metal and how you have not just completely blown out your voice box and all that, but just, you know, in terms of adding the lyrics and the vocals in, what's that been like joining the band, you know, so recently?
Well, for Shovel Monster, I mean, when he first asked me, I was kind of like, are you sure? Because I'm not anything like what Randall's sound was. And I was like, it's going to be night and day compared from me and Randall. But I mean, I taught myself how to scream, and I'm still learning. I'm still trying to develop new techniques and things like that, because I'm actually using a lot of new stuff for Shovel Monster that I've never used before.
Oh, okay. Like what?
Like the inhale screaming. I mean, I think they call it fry screaming or something. I've never done that.
Oh, okay.
I'm using it a lot as visualization to kind of let Shane actually have a voice. Because I know Randall was doing a similar thing, but I'm actually using it to visualize if Shane is actually talking in the song.
Oh, wow. So, and that the inhale screaming is the thing that kind of keys you into that more than anything else?
I guess. It kind of ended
You're
up
like, I don't know. I said it. I guess so.
I mean, it sounds kind of more out of the world. It doesn't sound like a normal scream to me. So I use it more of it does kind of sound more like an actual voice, or what could be a voice of someone who is, I guess, having a hard time. But
a hard time. That's one way to put it. Yeah. A little bit.
Writing lyrics for Shovel Monster actually is semi easy because we have a plan. Like when me and Mick started this album, we have a whole plan for the album already. So I know where I'm going, not to mention it's a serial killer anyway. So I'm in a box, but I'm not in a box. Right. I know what my theme is, and I know how to proceed, instead of just being like, I have this guitar part, could sing about anything. I don't know where to start. I at least have my starting point. We've already had that decided even before we started throwing downwards.
No, that's actually so, and that was something that the two of you collaborated on, just sort of, because I get the sense, and again, I mean, you've got the Shovel Monster album, you've got Day 9, and now you've got, and the new album is, I don't actually have a title for that. What is the new album called?
Yeah, we're not giving that out yet.
Okay. I didn't think I missed it, but because I'm looking, and I'm like, okay, I know it's from the new album, but okay, so you're not.
Yeah. So we're giving little Easter eggs here and there, and if you're paying attention, you'll be able to figure it out eventually. But the new album, as of right now, should be out on Halloween Day.
Okay, you're really gonna make us wait that long? You're really gonna make us
think about it.
4 months we gotta wait for this title. Okay, fine.
Yeah, but if we were a real, a big band, you'd have to wait 2 years. Instead.
Well, this is a very good point. Yeah, that's true. But I guess I shouldn't be complaining. It's and we are getting music along the way too, so that's
every 4 weeks. So should be about 5 songs, because we're gonna release one the beginning of October, and then the album will be Halloween. Which I always say this whenever I get a chance, is like back in the day, just Tuesdays were amazing to get that new music, And so whenever I can release an album, I try to do it on a Tuesday to, bring that nostalgia back.
Nostalgia, yeah. Very cool. Yeah. Very cool. No, okay. So we don't know what the title of the new album is, but would you say...
No. You don't. You don't know the title.
You do, sure. We the listeners, the fans, we do not know what the title of the new album is. I'm glad that you two know. Congratulations. Way to rub it in there, Mick. I really appreciate that. So would you say that it is from one album to the next that you're really kind of continuing? Obviously you have the motif, you have Shane, you have that whole theme, but is this album changing the story at all? And actually, do you want to get into the story? We might as well, behind the lyrics, because the lyricism across the albums is really, it's so intense, and it's so haunting, and it's so evocative, and you also throw in some things in there that are real gut punches, there was a line from, I think it was Loss, something like any trace of you will be erased, like the millions by before time, you who thought they could move the line, something like that.
Yeah.
And I'm going, oh shit, like that. There's so many ways that you can take that and interpret that and apply that to life, your specific life in general, whatever. And I really, and that, like, the darkness is too bright, that kind of thing. You have all this really intelligent, poetic kind of lyricism in there, which I think is something that maybe, on first listen, unless you're really good at picking those lyrics out, you don't necessarily catch. But tell me the story of the Shovel Monster. Tell me the story from, where it started to where you are now with it.
So I got to tell you, Lost, that first album, except for the song Unloved, I wrote that lyric for the song, but Ben, the first vocalist, did all the rest of the lyrics for that
Mhm.
album. And
Still your album. It's still
yeah,
your band.
I
Yeah.
mean, he's a great, friend of mine that's I've known him since I think 2006, and he was finally available to do some work. We've been trying to work together for years, and
Hmm.
long story short, yeah, we were able to do it, but then his health, he's got some issues, so I had to kind
Oh,
of move on, and then
okay.
so Randall and I, when Randall showed up, I told him, here's because I actually did the cover of Day 9 before we even started the album. I
Oh,
mean,
wow.
I
Okay.
think the cover that I have was out, I think, about this maybe even before the debut album even came out. But
Wow.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So
You were really overachieving there. Okay.
yeah, I was just being proactive, I guess. But
Yeah.
so then I told I was talking to Randall and just said, hey, we're going with this guy and let's figure out a little story. And we didn't have I don't think we had like a full story at the beginning
Oh, okay.
like Joseph and I did.
Mm.
Joseph and I came up with like a whole idea. Like I gave him my idea what I wanted to do, and so we kind of took it a step farther and made it a full thing. And now we're going forward. Whereas before, it's just like, okay, well, this is the idea, do your thing kind of thing. And I helped out with, I don't know, maybe 35-40% of the lyrics on Day 9, roughly.
Okay.
But yeah, it just, if you want to know, if you're asking about Day 9, what that's basically about is, long story short, he is abused as a child by, of course, his parents,
Mm.
unfortunately bullied at school,
Mm.
that type of thing that many of us, go through.
Right.
But he's also got some, like schizophrenia and stuff like that. And finally just one day snaps, and his mom and dad were his first kills.
Mm.
And then yeah, he just moved on, and the shovel, he picked up the shovel one day, and that was it. So that's the gist.
The meeting of muse and artist, I guess, in the
Yeah.
most macabre possible way. So, and I mean, it for this album, are you starting from that point? Or are you taking it in a different? I mean, obviously, Chad Case is not a love song. It's everyone who's heard it is aware that there's something really horrific going on, that there's a lot of confusion and blood loss, and consciousness is kind of optional. And so, I mean, is that, how are you, I guess what I'm really asking is, do you feel like this is a continuation of Day 9? Do you feel like it's its own separate thing? Is it a little bit of both, where there are echoes, but you're going in a completely different direction? And either of you, or ideally both, could take that question.
Well, I'm a horror nut, so I'm almost picturing it, I guess, as a movie. And to me, yes, Day 9 is movie 1. This is movie 2.
Okay.
It's essentially a different story, but just similar stuff, but it's just it's a whole different concept than the first, than Day 9.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Okay. And so how are you finding the collaboration with the two of you? Because obviously, MoJo, we should mention that you are also, Encircled Throne. People will know you from that band. And, how did this collaboration come about? How are you finding working together? Was this a surprise to both of you, or how'd you guys end up connecting?
We connected thanks to I'll call him a mutual friend. We've kind of lost contact now.
A former mutual friend.
But
okay.
Precisely.
We started I guess a collab. I'll just say it was a collaboration, and it fell apart. But that's how I actually met, Anger Overdose and Mick himself, and we continued talking from there. And hell, I don't know. I don't forget how it even came up with you finally, Mick, about asking me to do it. I think Randall, he was having, we had talked about the tour and stuff like that, and Randall living in, it's Costa Rica, right?
Costa Rica, yeah.
it's kind of
little bit of a distance issue.
kind of difficult
Right.
to get to the States to tour. So it was already leaning that way anyway. And it just happened to come up, and being, and Circle Throne is just me. So it's not like I'm,
no, you don't have a bunch of people. You're exactly.
I'm dedicated to this. No, we got our own tours going. I mean,
you can coordinate quite well with all of Encircled Throne just by looking at your own calendar. So,
and I loved Day 9 since the day I heard it. I mean, I ordered the CD like immediately so I could have it before everybody else could, because he was sending the CDs out. But yeah.
So this was a project that you were going to jump at because you loved the one that came before it.
Oh yeah. I mean, other than the fact that I was like, "Are you sure?" Because I am not Randall.
Yeah. Well, but that's Go ahead, Mick.
Yeah, that's so I was thinking who, obviously you go to your resources first and reach out to those to see if maybe they're an option to be a vocalist, for Shovel Monster. And so, to be honest, he was the first person that I started with. And I it's funny because he goes, "Oh yeah, I'll be a guest vocals on there, no problem." Thinking it was, thinking because he didn't. I didn't tell him that Randall was out yet, so
he just figured it was an extra voice.
Just guest vocals, And
surprise!
I said, no, do you want to be?
You're the guest that's moving in.
Yeah.
So that's cool. So then you sort of and was that hugely surprising to you, MoJo, that no, this was not just going to be a drive-by, that you were actually going to be responsible for all of the vocals for Shovel Monster from now on?
Extremely, because I mean, I'm sure as most musicians will agree, we're our own worst critics in a way, and we give ourselves a hard time. And
absolutely,
I think I'm a decent vocalist, but I've never thought anybody else would agree to that statement. So yeah, when he asked me to be the full time, I was like, "Are you sure?" But we're having a great time doing it together. I know I am. I'm loving doing the story, and obviously love the way Mick writes everything from top to bottom.
Well, that actually leads me to one of my next questions, which is, talk me through that. Talk me through the process from germ of an idea all the way through to you've put this out into the world. Does it start with, and for this album specifically, obviously, since it's the two of you, Mick, are you the one that's really kind of driving the bus in terms of, initial ideas, or is this something that you both work out together? How do you go from, okay, here's what I think I'm going to do for this song to, and we're done? What's the process?
So basically I'll write the music, and this album, other than that first song, we came up with our idea, and then he just kind of knows okay, this song sounds like this, this idea that we have for the story. And he kind of navigates each song how he feels. And he's been taking over the lyrics pretty much full time. So like I was saying, I don't mind helping out if need be, because I know he's busy too.
Sure.
So if he needs help, he can let me know. But yeah, we have that idea. He knows what's going on. He knows what's what. So
I mean, do you tend to start though with lyrics? Do you tend to start with guitar? Do you start with bass? Like where, obviously you have the overarching story.
Yeah.
But when you say I put the music together, it's almost like, and then there was the earth, so like it there's a lot that goes into that. So I'm really trying to get granular with you. Like when you're starting on a song, do you get a riff in your head? Do you have a bass line in your head? Are you thinking of a particular, BPM for your beats? Like where, or I'm sure it's different each time, but kind of, talk me through any, Chad case, how did that song start? And what came first there?
Usually, so when I did the debut album, it was just a bunch of riffage, and I'd play and record. I've gotten a lot more modern technology wise and stuff now since the first album. The first album, before it even was recorded, I actually was miking my cabinet and doing the old school way. Wow. Yeah.
Okay.
And then because I'd been out of the game for quite a few years, and so I was like, I'll do that. And I was like, it's not bad. It's definitely not horrible. I've heard worse, right? And then one day I stumbled upon DI, and I was like, wow. So yeah, and so I ended up buying an amp, and it was night and day, you know. And but anyway, so the first album was, you know, half of it was written when I was just miking it, and so I would just play and just, you know, on my iPhone I'd record that riff. I'm like, that's a cool riff, just so I don't forget it.
Yeah,
and
you
then
have
I just,
it. Yeah.
I just start building off of that. But
okay,
the song "Lost" that you know, or that you just mentioned, that was the first song that I actually put the drums first.
Okay.
So I went into my drum. Yeah, I went to my drum program, and I just laid out some drums, and I just started making up stuff. And I was like, and you know, until I thought that was worth putting out, and that's how I did it, and that's how I've done it pretty much since.
Okay, that tracks for me, because the drums on that on Lost specifically, like, I mean, not that all your stuff isn't rhythmic, and I guess it's sort of weird to say maybe about metal that your songs, to me at least, have kind of a groove. But they do. At least I'm hearing one, and so the fact that it would begin with the drums specifically, that makes a lot of sense to me. But then you have a song, like you mentioned it, Unloved. Okay, and that was one where I was going through and I was like, wait a minute here, like this is, and now it makes sense to me, because that, you said that's the one that you wrote. That's, I gotta say, that's probably like one of my top 3 of your songs. Like I really, you know, the first time I heard it, I was kind of like, okay, you know, I heard more rock elements in there, still metal, but you know, I heard more rock, you know, and the lyrics are a lot more human, and kind of poignant and touching than really anything else that I've heard, or really anything else that you've done.
They're a little more straightforward, I think.
But it kind of gets at the origin story a little bit more, I think, than some of the rest of it does, and in a way that is, while still being an absolute sledgehammer to the forehead, sort of more tender, you know, like it's your, you know, and again, maybe because I am a singer and I do tend to come in from a lyrical standpoint first and a melodic standpoint first, you know, I'm going to key into something like that more. But how did it come to be that was the song that you kind of took, you know, the stewardship of, in terms of the lyrics, and what was in your head when you were putting that one together? Because it really is very different in a lot of ways from everything else that you've done. And I think it's great. It's not like it's, it doesn't stick out like a sore thumb or anything like that. It was just one of the songs that made me go, whoa, okay, this is a different side of Shovel Monster.
Yeah.
you know?
So musically, that was like an acoustic, a lot of that, the main riff on that was an acoustic song. And then once I went DI, I'm like, well, how am I going to record this thing? And so I just kind of turned it into what it was. But that was before I mean, I'm fairly new to writing music, to be honest with you.
Okay.
Like that first album was probably like, I'd say I probably, up until the debut, I'd only wrote like 2 songs, I think. And that was like back in the, you know, 2000, probably 2001.
Okay.
And then when I went to, I was in another band back in the day, and they pretty much, if I came up with a good riff, they would kind of change it a little bit to like make it their own. And I didn't really get my own kind of thing. And then
you didn't have your voice. Yeah. Yeah.
No. And so then when 2008, when, you know, market took a dump, I had to sell everything, and I didn't play from like 2008 until I got an acoustic in 2017.
Wow. Okay,
Yeah.
so that was the hiatus that you referred to earlier.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
And
that's
so,
a long time to be out of the game, almost 10 years. That's a long time.
Yeah. And I'm not skilled at all. Like I'm mediocre at best. And so
I know I will quibble with that, but okay, I'll let you bullshit a little bit. Go ahead, say the two of you, man. Seriously, like if there's one thing I'm getting from talking to especially metal musicians, I know it's musicians in general, but you guys do not appreciate yourselves enough. You don't give yourselves enough credit. No, look, I mean, like let's be real, right? Like is metal a genre that feels familiar to me? Not at all. Is it something I would necessarily be like, okay, I'm going to pull up my playlist and this is like the first 10 songs? Not at all. But even as someone who is not coming in as as familiar with the genre, or an outright fan of the genre to begin with, like, I like your stuff, I it freaks me the fuck out. But I think that's normal. I think it's kind of supposed to. And I later on, I wanted to kind of get into a little bit of the psychology behind metal with you. But so it makes a lot of sense to me. But like, don't say you're not skilled. Don't say, are you sure you want me in the band? You guys, like, don't do that. Don't ding yourselves like that. Because if you, as I said to Death Pigeon, if I can sit down as probably one of the more, and again, as I've said, I don't consider myself vanilla in any way, really. I'm way too weird for that. But like, if I can come in and I can sit down and I can enjoy your albums, you're doing something right? Like, it's not niche in that way. And I think that's really cool. So anyway, that's my TED talk, but I didn't want to interrupt you. But okay, so you got back into it. You got your acoustic like 2017-ish. And then is that when Unloved came? No, that's too soon, right? You must have done other stuff.
No, I don't think I started it that soon. It was probably 2000, because I got my first electric guitar probably in 18, and then my wife got me a little amp that I could use, and I started getting back into stuff, and I was like, you know what, this is, bringing up the glory days, as we call it, and so I'm like, I want to do this again, and so I somewhere in there, because I played a lot more acoustic. Okay. And somewhere in there, I had that song. And then I think I was just trying to think of another song to add to the album. And I was like, well, let's just see what this sounds like.
I have this one.
Yeah. And so it was a little different. Like, the main riff is the same, but I added the heavy parts, obviously.
Okay.
The chorus and stuff. But so that's the music. The lyrics are a little more personal than you might think.
I could sense that, yeah.
Yeah, but
and you can get into that as much or as little as you want to. I'm not gonna pry, but yeah.
I think we all have. There's things from your childhood, but also, as a human, there's certain days. Even I have a great wife. Like, no complaints. I'm 110% happy with my situation. Mm-hmm. But there's always those days, just like playing guitar. It's just like, I just feel maybe I'm not good enough, or just those doubts, your worst enemy, like he was saying, you're your own worst enemy, and just there's those times when just you're not your strongest, I guess, and that's when sometimes good music happens. And
absolutely. No, I so appreciate that too, because we talk about mental health a lot on this show. And that's not because it's an agenda of mine, although, I think it's really important to talk about. But I'm finding that in these conversations that I'm having with musicians, that's a through line. Nobody gets out of life alive, right? Like, everybody's fighting some sort of, miserable friggin' battle, and you don't know what it is necessarily, but that they're fighting something, and whether it's current or it's something that they've dragged with them, from the past. I think that's the thing that fundamentally in music connects us all, right? Yeah. Is that however we express those personal experiences that are on a micro level specific, but on a macro level, pretty universal, right? Suffering, pain, grief, loss, self-doubt, insecurity, other mental health issues. But like, I think that's the thing that really brings everybody together. And I think that was where I really, because I mean, look, so you're sitting there listening to, albums about serial killers, and, clearly the kid's life was not rosy. Right. Most people don't just, have a Fisher Price life and then go out and start, killing people with shovels. So,
you don't hear, I guess, other than with those brothers, you don't hear of too many serial killers in Beverly Hills.
Right. Yeah. Right. Well, actually, yeah. Was it the Menendezes or the? Yeah. And then there was that other. Yeah, but no, they were in some farm somewhere. I don't know. My mom keeps telling me about some other horrific shovel based thing, but I'll have to tell her about this good shovel based thing now. But hey, Mom, I have a new album for you. Go listen to Shovel Monster. And yeah, we'll wait. But but I think that's where Unloved really kind of it got my attention. So it makes sense to me that because that's you. Right. That's you lyrically, that's you musically, and that's you and at least some version of your story. So, I mean, when you guys are writing for the new album now, are you finding that you're putting a lot of yourselves into it? Is it more you're almost writing a fictional, story for Shane? Is it a little bit of both? How does that play out? Is it personal? Is it more just the story? MoJo's like, don't ask me that question.
we're gonna go with it's more of a story than personal and real. Cause
gotcha.
Yeah,
this album's gonna be very brutal. Like it's yeah.
So we just, as I was telling you, we just finished the third song and it's 200 BPM. So that's like the fastest.
So a lullaby, okay, yeah.
And it's you hear 200 and it's like that's fast, but the song, when you listen to it, it's you mentioned groove, and I am all about groove. Like
that's the genre I would say is groove metal. I wouldn't even say deathcore. I would honestly say it's more groove metal because the drums. Other people have mentioned this to us. I mean, the drums are so prevalent in Shovel Monster. That's why I love it. I'm a drummer first. Yeah. Before I started anything, I started playing drums when I was 8. So
you're gonna key into that first. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's just I love that groove and just being able to just sit there and just enjoy it. It's like when I come up with a great riff, I start smiling sometimes. I'm like, that's it, And
you got it, yeah.
But yeah, we have this one that's 200 and it's got even though it's pretty fast, it's still groovy and I like it. So I'm excited for that one. That'll be the third one. That'll be out in August.
Okay. But that's a cool balance, right? Because at a certain tempo, you could lose all hint of a groove very easily, right? It could just be like, listening to a jackhammer or listening to some really like methed out woodpecker or whatever. Like, but it's you guys, I mean, and I think that's something that I noticed from album to album. And then, within each album is that you're not doing the same thing in every song. It's not, it's not like you turn on, just a snippet of a song and go, I have no idea which one this is. Like they all do have a unique identity. They all do have a different groove. They do have, the balance, whether it's between, the drums and the guitar or the guitar and the vocals or whatever, it's all different. And I think that makes sense because it is sort of a cinematic thing that you've made it with the album, right? It is telling a story, so you can't just have that be static. So in terms of this album that you're working on now, the title of which is like Voldemort or Beetlejuice, apparently we don't know what it is. Are you finding that you're doing the same sort of thing where, is the second song that and are you able to say what the second song that you're releasing is, or you're not giving me that tea either?
It's another case number, but instead of a name, it's buried.
Okay.
So it's buried and then case number, whatever the hell it is.
Okay. Case number, whatever the hell it is. I like that.
Yeah, we got a lot of case numbers, so
right. Okay.
But
they're not random numbers. Those numbers do mean something.
They always do. They always do. I'm learning that metal is it's nowhere near as random as people might think. There's always everything, all the elements seem to be built in and for a very specific reason. Everything's got a meaning. There's, subtext and all this stuff built in there. So will you tell us what the numbers mean, or you're not going to tell me that either? You guys realize this is an interview, right? And inherently this is an exchange of question and answer. And you're like, yeah, no, I could tell you, but then I'd have to kill you with a shovel. So
you just need to have us again on Halloween, and then
that's it. I'll bring you back and be like, okay, now what the fuck is the album title and what are the numbers? No, really, you're gonna have to come out with like we'll have to do a special edition of this show where it's like, behind the scenes. Now we get all the answers that we wanted in June. but it's October. So, all right. So, but to finish that question in I guess vague terms, because that's where we are with things right now, and I understand wanting to protect the release as you've planned it. But would you say that this Buried is going to be fairly similar to Chad Case? Is it going to be completely different? Are these stories independent where the music changes a lot, or do you feel like you've got more of a similar theme, similar motif through the whole album?
So the music, I'm kind of the debut album was pretty groovy album.
Yeah.
Day 9, I would say, was a little more aggressive.
I agree.
And so this album, I'm trying to incorporate both those.
Okay, cool. All right. So that makes it okay. That's very cool.
Buried will have a little more groove to it than Chad.
Yeah, Chad is, one of the words that kept coming to mind when I was listening to it every time really was relentless, and I think that fits given the lyrics, given the story, that it's just, you're in and out, that's what, like a 2.5, 3-ish minute song. You're not in there for all that long, but it's like, it does not let you breathe at all, and again, one of the things that I'm really starting to appreciate as I listen to more metal is that it's very meta. That the way that the songs are built, that the choices instrumentally, whether you're coming out hard with drums, or it's more of a guitar riff based thing, or a bass riff based thing, or if it's mostly the vocals and everything else is kind of backdrop to that. The way that you guys build your songs tends to reflect the story that you're telling with the songs. And I so appreciate that, that there's a really cool marriage of, sonically and lyrically what's going on. And I mean, how intentional is that? Is that something cool that you guys just managed to do and you're like, oh yeah, we meant to do it? Or like, is that part of the planning at the beginning, going, okay, well, this is the story we're telling here. I think this should be a song that's focusing more on this instrument versus that, or whatever.
Well, when you're talking about how the songs are written, I mean, he obviously starts all the music. Right. But when he sends it to me, like, I have the story in my head of how I want it to flow, and we've got the parts. So when he sends something to me, you talk about that imagery. Like, when I'm listening to the song, I'm thinking the entire time, can this part of the story fit here? Maybe. What about this one?
Okay.
Actually, this seems more like it. So there is a reason why the first song is named a name, and the second song is called Buried.
Buried. Okay.
So everything is, there is a full deliberate thing to everything, and there's a reason why we released Chad first and then Buried second. Now the third one, we just want to hurry up and release it.
Oh yeah,
and then we can talk about it, right? But so if I'm understanding you, then you're saying that you know what the story needs to do, right? You know that each song needs to communicate, move the story forward, but you might be thinking, okay, here's where we are in the story, but then you'll get the music from Mick and it's not the place for that part of the story to be told. Is that what you mean? That, that you may go, okay, I'll write, down the line here, or
I'm not forcing, like, just because we're on the third release, I'm not forcing that, okay, this has to be what I talk about next, when actually that other part fits so much better here.
So it doesn't have to be chronological in that way.
No,
it's not being released chronologically at all. It's just, the first one was the first one because that's where we were, and the second one was kind of the same thing, but we really want the third one out, so that's why it's coming out third.
Now, besides just the fact that you want to share it, can I ask why there's so much, like, is this a real plot point, the third one? Is this, what makes it, like, especially exciting to release this one, or is it just because you want the new one out?
Well, the second one is really good too. I mean, it's groovy. Groovy is always good, but the third one is that 200 BPM, and it's just it's groovy, but it's heavy. It's just super heavy, and of course, groovy and heavy is just a great combination in my opinion.
Really is, because it's not something you hear a lot. So that's at least it's not something. Maybe it's something you hear a lot. You listen to a lot more metal than I do, but that's I appreciate that because there is a lot of musicality in metal, even though I think a lot of people who don't bother sitting with it don't think so. So
Yeah.
okay, so you're excited because it sounds like then that the third release is going to be like, Shovel Monster Voltron, where you've got, the groove from the Shovel Monster album and then, just the super heaviness of Day 9. And then this is the song where it all starts to kind of meld together. Yes? No? Maybe?
That one doesn't have, I mean, the drums make it groovy on that one.
Right.
Whereas so like, sometimes when the drums are groovy, I'll mimic that on the guitar. But like the Art of Killing, where the guitars are pretty fast, but the drums aren't super fast.
No, there's a balance there. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's similar. It's kind of similar to that in a way. It's just a lot more heavy than that, though.
Okay. So and it's interesting because it's. That's another one, The Art of Killing, and I think on Spotify at least, I think that's your most streamed song.
Yes, that was a single that we put out in December.
Okay.
And I just sent that to everybody. That was, that would play it, and so we actually got decent, views off of that one.
Yeah, I mean, it seems to have been doing really well, but I mean, like that's another one where I heard more like rock elements, and I think that it's interesting to me the way that you guys are building this album, because you have your story, that's your guiding line, and then you've got the instrumentation, and you want that combination of groove and heavy, and then putting that all together and putting that together between two people, that could get really complicated. But it sounds like you guys have a little bit of a mind meld going here where you're both on the same page. And, so MoJo, if Mick hands you something, do you ever come back to him and go, I can't tell the story I need to this? Or can you always find a home for something that you need to be writing to move things forward lyrically?
Thankfully, we haven't had that issue yet.
Okay, cool.
There hasn't been nothing he has sent me that I've just been like, I don't see how that can fit with what we're doing. Now, granted, we were getting closer to the end of the album.
Yeah.
So the last one or two songs may be more like we may want to try something else. But like so far right now, I've been able to put this part of the story to everything like I need to, this part of it. So far it's worked out great. And I mean, we talked at length before we really got into, like, I don't write the lyrics until he sends me the song.
Right.
I've just got what part of the story, our bits and pieces of the story we're telling.
Right.
So once he finally sends it to me, like the third one, I mean, I wrote the lyrics and recorded the vocals this morning.
Oh, wow. Okay. So it's, have you heard it, Mick?
Yeah. He's sent me the rough mix, and it's really good.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely.
Oh, that's so cool. It was just this morning.
Look
at you. Woke up, put on some pants.
The vocals before we got into this. I was sitting there trying to chop it up to finish up the mix.
Okay.
Well, yeah. Yep. Okay. So we're trying to get ahead of the game. There's one song that we had done, which he can still maybe use the lyrics, but one of the songs that I wrote, I'm just not 100% on it. So I may try and rework it or whatnot. So I'm maybe one or two songs away from finishing the album, pretty much.
That's really exciting. Yeah, that's
it is. It's a little stressful because I'm always trying to actually, improve and not write the same stuff.
Right,
so
right.
I always feel pressure to, come up with something better than before, and so that's why I try to do a lot of writing. Like I spend 30 minutes almost every night, not maybe 4 or 5 times a week, after work and stuff, to try and play and come up with something, and just so I'm not feeling even more pressured, to come up with something. I try to stay ahead of it,
Yeah. I mean, and how do you find? Because it some people find that if they plan to write or play music or whatever, if they have sort of a creative block scheduled every day, that it gets their juices flowing. And then there are some people I talk to who are like, I cannot create on demand like that. So you find do you guys work similarly in that way? Because I mean, obviously, MoJo, when Mick sends you something, that's okay. Here we go. Now it's up to you. Where are the lyrics? What's coming? But like, do you work in a similar way where you like to have that time built in the day, or do you just sort of? And how long after you get one of Mick's tracks do you feel like, okay, now I know where I'm going lyrically with this? Is it pretty immediate? Does it depend on the song? Does it take a long time? You're waking up one morning going, oh, this is what I want to do.
Generally, it's almost immediate when I first hear it. I know
Really?
I want this part. I think this part would sound great, but it hasn't worked that way with all of them. But
okay.
I mean, I try to sit on it a few days to make sure that am I positive I want to use this part of the story, because I don't want. I'd hate for him to send me a song later
and then
like, man, that would have been perfect for that portion.
That's a really interesting point, actually, because since you guys are doing it piecemeal, in a way, what happens if you do get a track from Mick where you go, shit, I wish I had this? Would you ever,
I hope
transplant?
Well, I mean, he's heard, I think, most of the songs that I've wrote already.
Okay.
I try not to overload him because I want him to just concentrate on one at a time, and that way we don't miss something on this one, or just get confused or whatever. So I try to just send him, but I've sent him. I think for the most part, I think he's heard everything up to this point.
Okay.
But yeah, I think
it's kind of been almost luck, because it's from day one of us talking about doing it and getting going, and then talking about the story and being on the same page about how we wanted the story to flow, and everything he sent me, it's just been that's it. That belongs there. It obviously belongs there. So it's kind of been probably a lot about luck.
Well, and I imagine too, because Mick knows what you know about the story and where it needs to go. Mick, I'm assuming that when you're putting out tracks, you're as mindful of needing to serve the lyrics and the story with the instrumentation as MoJo is from the lyrical side, right? I mean, it's not like you're just, hey, okay, this is the song I think I'm going to write today. And it's interesting to me that this is the second time that I've talked to a band where a story was really, for Death Pigeon, it was a literal, fiction piece that was published, and you guys have this story in your mind of where you want the character to go and what's going to happen. So how do you, Mick, with the instrumentation, how do you get to a point where you feel like you can say, okay, I know where we are. I know what parts of the story we've told. I know where we're going. This is the kind of music that needs to be behind that part of the story. Because, I mean, that's not easy to do. I mean, at least it doesn't sound easy to do, that you guys are building this thing, and you're doing it in a way that it isn't even necessarily linear. So how do you do that? I mean, because I don't think that's just luck, that it's like, hey, we've managed to happily, I mean, is it really, is that really, and if it is just bullshit, because make it sound intent. No, but so is it really luck? Is that really what's going on there?
I just write the best songs that I can, and I leave it up to Randall. Like I say, he wrote, I think there was 3 songs that he wrote all by himself, but the other ones I did roughly 40 to 50%.
Right.
But yeah, I try to leave it up to them. And Joseph, it's a little different because we've already went over what the plan is.
Right.
But yeah, I just try to write the heaviest, grooviest stuff that I'm capable of, and it's been working out so far.
Yeah, knock on wood.
Yeah.
It's every time I hear something from him, I mean, it's been like a perfect click. To me, the imagery is there. So what our story is, I can just, the way the music's moving to me, I mean, I'm like, I've done music since I was 8. I went to school for music. So everything to me is based off that imagery too. Like I can just feel like, to me, if it's all right, somebody's running, I feel like that's in that part.
Yeah. And I could see that too, because there are songs from the previous albums that are even more literal in that way, you know, somebody running through puddles and you know, and all this stuff, and you do there is a sense of, I think, urgency and intensity in pretty much everything, but the fact that you're finding inspiration for the pieces of the story that you've already both planned out, it's just that's very cool to me, because it seems like a really complex and potentially complicated way to do an album, but you guys are in sync, it's working, you know, and that's tremendous, you know, and especially for, I mean, you guys have only been working together for a couple of months, so to have that kind of synergy already is really impressive to me.
It's been nice. It's been very nice.
Yeah,
It's definitely, it's been a very pleasant experience so far, because I don't want to get into any nonsense, but it's been a little, I'll just say it's been a little stressful, the first couple albums.
Okay.
On top of trying to come up with some good stuff, right?
Sure.
But Joseph, it's just been, like you say, very smooth. It's just been a nice experience so far, and I'm just looking forward to getting this album out and then seeing what we can come up with next, you know?
Right, album 4 with the same two people.
Yeah, imagine that.
So just to flip it a little bit here, I always am interested to hear what other musicians listen to besides their own stuff. So, you know, what are some of your influences? I mean, like I MoJo, I know you said you've been in music since you were 8, and Mick, you know, when did you kind of, just before I get to the next question, when did you start with music? Were you a kid, or was it more in like the early 2000s, like you said, when you?
Yeah, so I was an athlete, and so I was concentrating on that. My dad, when he was in his teens, played drums, and he bought me drums when I was, cool. I don't know, 3 or 4, and I just decimated the whole kit. Of course.
That's what you do.
Yeah, and so
metal, even at that little age, little metal toddler, just beating the shit out of your kit. Yeah,
standing in the drum and everything, doing dumb shit.
Wow,
hiding in the, you know. But so the next musical experience would be high school. My buddy got me into Pantera and White Zombie and all that stuff, and because I'll skip what I was gonna say, but so he'd come over and bring his amp, and we'd sit in his pickup truck in the bed of the truck and just play around in the street, just playing guitar. We didn't know shit for shit, but it's funny though, because I came up with Thunder Kiss 1965. I came up with that main riff of that song by accident, of course, and I was like, wow, and that's when I first was like, this is pretty cool, and I kind of dabbled a little bit in college with my friends that I met that played guitar, and then I didn't actually buy my first guitar, I think, until I was 20.
Oh wow, okay.
Yeah, I'm old, so
that doesn't make you old, but no, I mean it's funny, because some people are like, oh yeah, you know, basically I came out of the womb and I was just handed an instrument and I've been playing it since then, and some people come to it later, and it sounds like you sort of, you dipped in and out, and then you got into it, and then you dipped right back out for like 8 years or whatever. So, but thankfully you're back. So, okay. So with that kind of, you know, backstory there, who do you guys listen to? Like who'd you listen to when you were younger? Is it the same bands that you listen to now? Like what turns you on musically besides Shovel Monster and Encircled Throne?
Go ahead, Mick.
You can go for it. Me. So I was in high school. Was it 9th grade? I don't know. I think it was 9th grade when Nirvana got huge, you know, and so I was into grunge. I was into, like I was mentioning, you know, White Zombie and Pantera. And I love the Beatles. They're a fantastic, you know, group. So, and my dad, you know, was always putting on music, and so that's how I know, you know, about the old stuff. And so I love listening to old stuff, but as far as metal, I don't know. I these days I try to find different stuff. I try to find new stuff, because I'll go heavy on somebody for, you know, a full week solid every work. You know, I'll go to the gym after work, and I'll play, their album, this album and that album, and then go,
Yeah.
and then I'll switch to another artist. And sometimes, I forget about certain bands because it's just flooded, it
There's
just
so much
flooded with
music.
music. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's hard to choose sometimes. And, but yeah, that's kind of where I stem from, just the Beatles and the grunge rock. And then, there's some heavier bands than that I got into, like Carcass and Entombed and stuff back in the 90s that you probably don't know shit about.
I only know the names of any of these if I know them, and maybe not even that. But yes, Carcass I've heard of.
Have you really?
Yeah, I don't
good
know.
for you.
I did have a friend in college who was pretty hard into metal, and so I would see posters and CDs and whatever, and yeah, I definitely did not get the metal education at that point. That's been coming this year. This is all still pretty new, but okay. So I mean, that's a really interesting cross section, though. If you're going from like the Beatles to Nirvana to Pantera to current metal and new things that you're finding, that actually makes a lot of sense to me musically, why you do care about groove and you do care about melody and you do care about telling a story, because I think it's important for music to have some sort of a point, that whether it's across songs or just from song to song, that there is a story. It gives everything kind of an anchor, right? So that makes sense to me. Okay, MoJo, you're up. You've had time to think. I'm sure this is going to be the greatest list ever. You're going to say the Beatles and Nirvana and Pantera and White Zombie and Carcass. You're just going to bite Mick's list, or
he's
what?
Younger than me, so
no,
he might have
I'm actually not a fan of the Beatles, believe it or not.
That's okay. Not everybody is.
I came out of the womb listening to Metallica and AC/DC.
Okay.
That's what my mom loved heavily. And so like I was listening to that, CCR, Leonard Skinner,
okay.
Playing a cover band, we play all the classic Southern rock stuff.
Southern rock,
the time.
Yeah.
Typical bar band stuff. And
I hear you.
Once I got about my teenage years, that's when Slipknot came out. And that was one of my first real introductions to heavy and screaming. So I listened to like Slipknot, Deftones, got into like Black Dahlia Murder and stuff like that.
And just lit up your brain. Okay.
I'm also very much an emo kid. Like I really like bands like Taking Back Sunday, Brand New.
Really?
Like those, that's where a lot of my heart is actually more in that than it is in metal.
Okay.
So I've got a very broad spectrum when it comes to music. Like, I mean, I love going to some of these festivals where they have, anything is there, because I will listen to pretty much almost anything, except for I'm not that big a fan of a lot of rap stuff. Unless it's got a really good beat to it, I really can't get into some of this rap stuff.
I hear you. So but that's something I hear a lot too, is that most of the metal musicians that I've talked to don't just listen to metal. I'll hear, oh yeah, I'm listening to Cradle of Filth and I'm listening to Opeth, and then it's also, and Madonna and, Britney Spears and Michael Bolton, and like, it's kind of like the Beatles and, Deftones, whatever. Like it's, I love that, because it makes sense to me too, because whether it's consciously or not, as musicians, you bring your influences to bear on what you're doing, right? And so if you take all of this stuff that's so different and so not metal, and it's from the two of you, and you even listen to different things from each other besides metal, and then you put it together in a metal context, like there's so much opportunity there for you guys to do something new and interesting. And I think that's why the albums don't just do one thing over and over and over again, because you're not only listening.
There's one guy I talked to. There's one guy I talked to who made a really good point about it. He says, "I'm already playing metal. I don't want to listen to any more of it. I listen to enough metal when I'm out here." It was somebody big, like they were on tour, like either Black Dahlia or Slipknot or somebody. It was somebody in a much larger band who recently toured, and they were like, "Yeah, I mean, we're constantly playing metal with these metal bands every night. I'd much rather listen to this than continue to hear that all the time.
Yeah, like a musical sorbet kind of, it just lets cleanse the palate. And
that all the time.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. I just want somebody to talk nicely to me for 15 minutes.
I usually just listen to metal in the gym now. Whereas I used to listen to it constantly, but now it's just pretty much in the gym and maybe in my truck for a few minutes. But yeah, I usually listen to like 80s music.
Okay. Well, that's pretty broad. What kind of 80s?
I mean, I didn't have a problem with the 80s pop, 80s rock. I mean, you go from Depeche Mode, Duran Duran to, Cherry Pie, Warrant, and all those.
I like the pie.
Yeah, like I like the hair metal, like your hair, whatever you call it.
Yeah.
So like, because my wife
just 80s, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, my wife doesn't like metal, so I tried to
hear that a lot.
Yeah, so I'll listen to the Beatles or the 80s, when she's around. So
okay. So she doesn't start screaming at you, and then you can record that and put that on the next album. I think maybe we've cracked the code there. If you do end up having a guest vocalist, it could just be Mick's wife screaming at him, "Turn it off, turn it off." But okay, so there's some interesting, surprising answers there. I appreciate that. I think you guys are surprising, it's but it is to me because, look, we've all heard the stuff about metal over the years, right? That, it's just all these people who are, evil and violent and murderous and, they hate everyone and they worship Satan and they this, that, whatever. And I've been, hanging out with so many musicians in the metal community, and I'm going, well, that's not true. Like, these are some of the sweetest, nicest, kindest people. And I'll mention even specifically, you guys, I was so touched. There's the charity that I work with all the time, Yellow for Yanni, and you guys made that custom shirt for Yanni, little shovel monster merch. And I'm like, okay, this is not somebody that's like, gonna eat my face off when I meet up with them for voxandstix. But I mean, like, what I think is really interesting is as I listen to metal and I sort of do all the research for the show and everything else, is that it seems to me like there are a lot of paradoxes in metal, as a genre, and just even in the songs, there's sort of this intense sense of being an outsider, but then also people who are in the metal community seem to be very tight-knit in a lot of ways. So there's this real insider vibe that goes on. So you've got kind of that dichotomy of, sort of being outside of the mainstream, outside of normal society, whatever the hell that is. I don't think it exists, but whatever. But, mainstream at least, right? Yeah. And I think that for me, what I'm noticing is that as I get more familiar with the different kinds of metal, and I'm with you, like, I really don't care what genre anything is. If it's music, if it's good and I like it, then I don't care what we're calling it. It really doesn't matter. But that the more intense it gets, the heavier it gets, the more aggressive it gets, it's kind of sharpening the borders, right? Mm-hmm. Between people who can hang with that kind of music and everybody else, right? So I think that's an interesting place to live musically. And then I also think that the other paradox that I keep experiencing is sort of this odd experience of feeling joy in the expression of negative emotion, right? So like, you're listening to all this stuff that's very, oh my God, why is there so much blood? And, where's my leg? And it could really just depress the shit out of you, right? It could scare you, whatever. Or you could sit there and go, okay, well, anybody who's going to listen to this kind of music and like it is probably going to go out and, grab a shovel and go do the same thing. And no, I mean, that's clearly not happening. I mean, you guys are not, unless, off screen is a whole pile of gore that I'm not seeing or whatever. You guys seem to be pretty reasonable people. I haven't felt remotely frightened at all while I've been talking to you. So like, I mean, do you experience metal when you play it, when you listen to it, both as kind of a catharsis? Is it sort of like a bucket to put all the shit in so that you don't have to feel all that all day? Where does what metal does? What does metal do for you, and how does that fit into what you guys do as musicians and just as people in general? Don't all jump in at once.
Well, to me, there's a lot more emotion to metal than a lot of people give it credit for. Like, you know, there's a lot of bands talking about like mental health issues, like depression and dealing with that kind of stuff that relates to me hard. So when I'm listening to those songs, but then we listen to like, you know, Shovel Monster stuff. That's the aggression that I wish I could take out on somebody who just cut me off. But you know, I can take it out while I'm screaming with the song and not really actually go out there and take a shovel to their leg like I talk about.
Kudos, good choice.
But you know,
fully endorse.
I don't know. It's just always, to me, that's where I've been emotionally drawn, especially with some people in their lyrics, because it does sound all mean and angry, but it's really not. Like you talk about, you know, some of the nicest people. I mean, most of my friends are metalheads, and most of them are big softies. We all have little bromances and stuff like that. Big teddy bears. I mean, it definitely doesn't go with the person up there screaming. You think, man, he's got to be mean, and then he's like the sweetest little dude.
That's exact. And I mean, people asked me like, how are you going to interview on this show? Like, okay, fine. Like there are some bands that are, like, I could totally understand you, but like, how are you going to interview like a Shovel Monster or, you know, an Icicle Venom or whatever, like the big meanies, you know, or whatever. And it's like, I don't think that's really, for me, kind of been where I've begun with metal, because if you go in with preconceptions like that, like, oh, everyone who plays metal or enjoys metal must be a jerk, they must be really violent, they must be really angry, they must be really mean and cruel, and, you know, like these scary dudes and whatever, like, how is that going to be accessible to anybody, right? Like, who would want to hang out with people like that? But like, I don't feel like that's what the music is doing, you know, and that's why when I hear like an Unloved, and I'm going, no, see, there's depth there. There's nuance there. There is a story there. You know, most people who are really pissed off and just, you know, cracking people over the head with shovels are not writing stories, you know, like you're not, you know, it's not thoughtful like that. So, I mean, Mick, what about you? I mean, you know, is it again, sort of more like an outlet? Is it something that just expresses a side that you maybe don't dabble in otherwise in life, or kind of where does metal work for you? Why are you drawn to that particular genre?
To be honest, I don't know. I don't know if I have an answer, although writing the heavy stuff, because obviously I love the heavy stuff, but writing, it is cathartic for me. You know, it's personally, my wife, she's actually going to have surgery here this next week.
Oh.
And so it's been very stressful to try and keep her. We have, you know, a bunch of animals. We have a Great Dane, and she's a big dummy, you know, and tries to get all over my wife, and she's, you know, needs back surgery. And trying to keep the house in order and keep the animals, you know, in order to, so she could, you know, and so that's been added stress. But being able to come and play guitar, and as I said, the gym, it's definitely helps release some of that stress nowadays, like I was kind of mentioned earlier, it's like metal used to be, I mean, I always liked 80s music and Beatles and stuff, but I wouldn't listen to it quite as much as I do now. And that being said, maybe it's because my wife and I are always together. And
she doesn't like metal.
And but it's all fair. She listens to that rap crap, so I ain't putting up with that. So I guess we'll find it.
You each have veto power on something. Well, what is that line from Pulp Fiction? My girlfriend's a vegetarian, which pretty much makes me a vegetarian, right? Like, so if you're with your wife and your wife doesn't like you, you're not going to listen to it. But at least turnabout is fair play, and you get to say no to the stuff that you don't like. So okay, so
we have a common ground with
that's a lot
80s,
going on for you. Okay,
but so that, you know, I always wanted to be in a band, and I was in a couple bands, but like I was mentioned, you know, I just didn't get to put my stamp on the things 100%. And so being able to do that now, it's definitely fulfilling, even though, like I say, I don't feel like I'm a great musician or anything like that. I think I have a long way to go, and I can't tell you if I'll even get to where I would like to be. But yeah, I'm enjoying it. It's definitely a stress reliever for me to be able to play music and play the heavy stuff that I want to play. And
I mean, does any musician ever feel like they're good enough or like they are where they want to be? I mean, I don't know if any artist ever feels that way. You know, I think that it's you know, if you're done learning, you stop, right? If you're done growing, you're done. You know, what else can you do at that point? Then you go from, you know, writing the bitches back to singing the Lion King, right? Like it's just, you know, you never, you're never sated, you're never done, you're never perfect. I think that's and I think if you are, or you think that you are, that your art probably sucks, you know, because there's.
I've known a few people who have thought that they were God and their music was not
so great. Yeah, no, I think whether it's musically or just in life, if people feel superior like that, or they feel like they're, you know, at the pinnacle of all that they can do, I'm generally not rolling with them. Like that's not an attitude or a mindset that I find any value in, because it's just, you know, it's too hard to be real and human and vulnerable and then hang out with people who clearly have mastered the art of not being any of those things, because that's kind of what you have to do if you think you're perfect, right? If you think you're perfect, you are either like stone out of your mind, or you're operating on a level of delusion that is like, you know, epic. And I just no interest in that. So I don't think it needs to go to the level of, you know, not thinking you're a good musician, which you clearly both are. But I absolutely can empathize with the idea of never quite feeling like you're where you want to be, you know.
Yeah.
But who knows? It might suck to actually get there, because then what? Like, then what do you do?
Well, I always like, I think I improved my writing on day 9. And I'm obviously trying to keep improving, as I mentioned, but I almost worry that there's going to be a point where I'm like, I don't know. Yeah. So that's the things I stress about, is being able to, like, I had my first writing block this week.
Okay.
Where I'll put drums out and I'll get throw down some ideas, and I couldn't come up with jack. And that was the first time. But I'm old enough to know that, you can't just give up. And I came back the next day and wrote a minute 30, no problem. So,
well, and again, given all the stress that you're under right now, just in real life, like that can dry up the well sometimes too. It is difficult to be creative when you've got that much that you're juggling. So, I mean, I think that's that's part of it too, is that, you when you're creative in any way, there's always the risk of feeling like, you're out of ideas, and then, oh my God, is it ever going to come back? And then I think usually it does, I think usually, the blocks they do end. But it just sounds like you guys are motoring with this new album, really. I mean, again, you're mostly done, and you have only been working together for a couple of months. Like that's, I don't feel like you're moving at what I would call a glacial pace, if that's if that's the case here. So you have 3 that are set, and then you've got another, you're saying like 3?
Yeah, I think without actually counting, that board behind me, I usually have that. I have it all marked up, usually with to keep track of what this song is, what the BPM and all that stuff. And I've been slacking on this album for that, but
I think we're at 7.
Well, okay. It might be 6, because I think there's that one song that I'm like, I just don't know if it's going to be as good as the rest of this. So
if you guys want to talk in detail, I'll just cover my ears for a minute, and I promise I won't listen.
Sure.
We won't keep rolling or anything. Yeah.
He has, I think, 4 or 5 lyrics, roughly.
Okay.
Because we actually have, I think we have 5 lyrics, because
he's looking it up.
Yeah, because we skipped a couple of the songs that we had lyrics for to do this 200 BPM song
Okay.
ahead of those.
Okay.
But I think one of those is one of those songs, the song that I'm talking about that I'm not happy
You're
with.
not totally sold on. Now,
Yeah.
what about it is not completely resonating with you? Do you feel like it's not serving the story? Is it something in the actual, like, layering of the tracks? Is it the instrumentation itself? Like what are you questioning about it?
It's just the whole song, I think. So like day 9, we had Randall and I, the first song we did, we were going to just put it out as a single.
Okay.
And then
Was that Life a Plague, or is that not, did it not
no,
start?
that's on the first album. It was, you haven't even heard it. It's not even out.
Oh, okay.
So we were going to put it as a single, and then we said, let's just add it as on the album. And then we started writing the album like, this song sucks pretty much.
Oh.
And so we we're like, so should we were thinking about putting it as a filler song, and then I was like, nah, it's not even good enough to be on the album. So we
just didn't want it on at all.
It's sitting on my phone and my file, and probably never be heard. But the same kind of thing with this song. It's just the songs that I've been coming up with are better.
It was okay. That's the problem.
Yeah.
Like, it wasn't bad, but like compared to how we feel the rest
Shovel
of it,
Monster does not do okay. So yeah, I totally okay. So there was nothing wrong with it.
There's nothing wrong with the song. Okay. I mean, it still grooved. It was still heavy, but it wasn't fitting the dynamic. Yeah, it's just kind of.
So did it not spark you either lyrically?
It did, but not necessarily the happiest about it.
Okay, so you're both kind of in the same mindset about it. Okay.
Yeah, and so like the second album, Day 9, I actually had 3 or 4 songs, kind of like this album. I had 3 or 4 songs done that didn't go on the album, so I'm like, we'll just push that to the next album.
Right. Yeah.
And they're still sitting there, and I think a couple of them might work. I have to go back and maybe rework a little bit, but I've been just Day 9. Oh, so Boneyard is my oldest song, probably.
Oh, okay.
I probably wrote that back. I wrote that before Unloved. Actually, the riffs, in it.
Okay.
And to go on a little side note there,
go for it.
Day 9 and Boneyard was one song, but Day 9 were the running and all that.
Yeah, yeah.
So I was just messing with, because I just got a Mac at that point back then, and I was just messing with the loops and the effects and stuff. And I actually had it like a ship in the ocean in a storm, basically. And so when Day 9 came around and we had this story that we're doing, I'm like, well, what the fuck's that going to have anything to do with?
Right. How does that work? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So then I took out the boat and took out some stuff, and then I added the running, and I came up with that idea, and I asked Randall, hey, act like you're running. So do these, breathing. And
I mean, that is, talk about a way to open an album, I mean, like you're immediately like, oh shit, what are we running from? And then that slashing sound does not sound good. It's way too gooey to be good. Like, we're not cutting cake or like, a meatloaf here. Like, this is bad, but, and it's funny because when I listen to the albums, and prepping for the show the first time through, I usually I'm listening and my eyes are closed and I'm just kind of, and it took me a minute to realize that Boneyard had started and Day 9 had ended, and that so it makes sense to me that it was one thing, and then you kind of went back and added the running, and that's
yeah. And the reason why we split it up this time was Randall isn't a fan of intros, I guess.
Oh, okay.
And so I was like, well, what if we just have it as an intro and you can skip it if you don't want to listen to it?
Gotcha. Okay.
And so we had it to where if you want to listen to it, it'll just flow right into
it doesn't break it up at all, but you can start Boneyard without having listened to Day 9. So that's That was a nice compromise, Mick. That was very thoughtful of you for an angry metal individual.
Right. Well, I try to work with, Joseph and Randall. I try to be open-minded, because that's the nice thing. Because I did vocals back in the day, and I was gonna try and do it myself, but when I started practicing vocals again, I just couldn't get them back to where they were, and so going off that, the nice thing about having somebody else is that second point of view, to add to the dynamics that I don't know everything. I don't have all the ideas, and
sure.
So it's nice to have that different perspective to add to the song, and so so that's and I don't mind. I don't have all, like I was saying. I'm not stuck on certain how I write the music. I'm not 100% sold on the way I write it. So if he says, hey, maybe try this part, or maybe cut this part in half, or Randall did that on occasions. He would say, hey, can you, because maybe the lyrics that he came up with were different than what the song was a little bit,
right?
So he'd just say, hey, just cut this part in half, or hey, do this, add this part another time, or so he would do that,
right? Just something to fit the lyrics, or to fit, right? Yeah, because because you guys are not doing a standard song structure lyrically with these. It's not like verse chorus, bridge, verse chorus, chorus. You can do whatever the hell you want. And I there are refrains that will be repeated, but I wouldn't say that I've heard like an outright chorus in anything that you guys are doing. Am I missing stuff that you would consider to be more like a standard song structure? Or to me, it mostly seems like the story just tells what it tells, and there isn't a part to it.
So going back to when I was telling you I'm mediocre,
if you ever start dating again for some reason, don't put that as like the lead line on your app there.
Oh my God, I don't think.
Speaking of being mediocre.
Yeah, God forbid if I have to date again.
No, you're good. You got the good wife. We're not going anywhere. We got the animals and the wife. We're good. We're all set. So, okay. 100%. So I hate what you said, but I'm going to repeat it back to you so you can keep going. So, going back to talking about being mediocre, allegedly, yes.
God, I don't even remember, to be honest.
Song structure. We were talking about chorus. And
yeah. So song structure. I know there's what ABC or AB, whatever this. I'd have to look them all up because I don't know that. I don't know music theory. I don't know shit about nothing. I just write what I like. I put the song how I think it should go, and yeah, you're right. The lyrics. There really isn't like a chorus per se, because there's no real lyrics that are. I mean, I think there was a couple on Day 9, and actually the debut, where the lyrics were repeated as like a
the refrains. That's what I meant. But it's not. You're not. And by the way, I hope it's clear when I say that it's not meant as a negative at all. I think it's really interesting that most metal that I've heard is really all of it is not bound to that kind of a structure. It would feel weird to have a metal chorus to me in that, especially with what you guys do. It's like, okay, so is the Shovel Monster just sitting there like jamming to this part of this, like the chord, like it doesn't fit. You are telling a story, and you wouldn't want to read a story where every 5 paragraphs they repeated the same 4 lines from somewhere else in the story. Like that doesn't nobody needs that. So I actually think that's really cool that it is it's a freeform thing. It's freeform lyricism. There isn't a rigid structure to the music, and I don't think that's about not being versed in music. I mean, look, most musicians I think are not as well versed in music theory as you would think, and it's. I think that's the genre, right? And I think that's you don't need that for what you're doing with the storytelling that you're doing.
Well, and I'm trying to keep the songs pretty much like get after it and get in and get out. As you mentioned, my songs are maybe between 2 minutes and 2:45. Maybe
they're as long as they need to be. Yeah.
I think the thing that with the internet and everything is at your fingertips. Everybody, I think, a lot more people are their attention span is not, 5, 6, 7, 8 minute songs.
Absolutely.
And so I think having a couple minute songs, I can maybe get that person to listen to the whole thing.
Yeah.
So I think with the attention spans that we have nowadays, and with my skills, as we've mentioned, I think keeping it, at 2.5 minutes, I try to stay around there.
Mm-hmm.
It kind of maybe also will kind of have that, I want more. The song's already over. What happened? It's
well, but I also think that given what you're doing musically, I don't know how infinitely sustainable a single song would be. The you can only experience that level of intensity for so long at a time, right? And that's not about, oh, I don't want to listen to it anymore, or it's not good. It's just you are engaging the listener on every sensory level, right? Because it's this sort of central nervous system kind of thing where you're already like, and you're in it, you're breathing, you're intense, and your adrenaline's going, and then you've got like the visuals, which are really graphic and really intense, and then between the drums and the blast beats and then all the growling, and like it is, I think it's, those things are meant to be more ephemeral. I don't think they're meant to be super long. Does anybody need like a 15-minute groove metal song or whatever to experience it? No, it's kind of like you've condensed it all into like 3 minutes of just melting your fucking face off, and then like we're on to the next thing. Like, I like that about it, because it's like, I don't feel like I could catch my breath. I don't feel like, before I've settled down from one song before I'm on to the next. And I feel like that works. I feel like that's the kind of momentum that an album like a Shovel Monster album, whichever one it is I think that's what you would want. Right. So I think it makes sense to me, at least.
Yeah,
why they're not really long.
I think it's been working pretty well.
Mm-hmm.
So
let's say, I went to school for music, and even though in circled stuff, I'd throw it out the window how songs are supposed to.
Right.
But most of mine does have discernible verse and choruses, and there are a few of these that we've been working on that a riff does repeat, but
right.
There's one or two of them I'll start like the same line, but it's a different part of the story. I'm only echoing.
Oh, cool. So it's like a refrain.
I may repeat the first few words of it, but the next 2 or 3 lines is not the same.
Totally different. Oh, that's really cool. I like that. So you're keeping it cohesive, but you're not repeating the same thing over and over. It's just sort of, it's starting in the same place and then taking you somewhere else. That's really cool. Well, we should probably, I've been so busy talking about the music, we should probably let everybody listen to at least one song. So we were going to play Chad case number E003814 for the masses. Is there anything else that you want to say about this before we roll it?
I gotta say, I'm impressed with your memory skills. That's.
Oh.
I don't
know.
It
makes an impression. That's why you're not
really
telling me titles. You don't remember them. That's what it is.
Exactly.
You're like, it's mysterious, and we're not releasing it. What was it called again? Yeah. So, have we said it all, or is there any other info that you want to lay out before we roll the song?
Yeah, that's the first single.
Poor Chad.
Off the album that has not yet been named to anybody but the two of you. Okay.
Right.
All right. So let's roll it.
Hear
Okay. I mean, you guys, like, you have to understand, like, watching that video and even the way that you did the lyrics in the video is terrifying. You know, it's not like they just pop up on the screen in Comic Sans or whatever, you know, and it's like, oh, there's so much blood. Like,
listen to this though.
Yeah.
That's his first video that he's made. Isn't that amazing?
Ever?
That's the first lyric video I've made with that program. Yeah, I made I know you've seen Anger Overdoses 1999, but that was with simple iMovie, you know, basic. I got a new program, and that was the first time I've ever used it to make that kind of video.
Okay, well, you did really well with it because it is arresting is the word that popped into my head, but like no, but that's what I mean about like the whole sensory thing. You know, it's not. Metal doesn't make you comfortable, you know, right? And so having a lyric video, most lyric videos look like, I'm going to pull out a reference that you probably won't know, but like, you know, Saturday Night Live used to do this, you know, Stuart Smalley thing where it was like, you know, I'm good enough, I'm smart enough, and doggone it, people like me, you know, so like the lyrics, they'll just come up on the screen and people will read them. And it's like, oh, okay, you know, now I know what they're saying. And but this was almost like a movie, a visual word movie with the lyrics. And it, you know, even the way that they slide down the screen and it almost looks like, you know, like it's been clawed out in blood. I mean, the intentions behind all that. And that's why when you guys are negging yourselves, I'm like, shut the fuck up, because like you can, like, that's so clever, you know, and it adds to what the music is doing in such a cool way, you know. And because I watched that video a couple of times because I was like, damn it, this is like really freaking me out. but in a cool way, in like when you go and see a great horror movie and you're just like, shit, I'm so scared, but more, you know, like more and more. So I'm very impressed that was your first outing with that program.
I'm definitely trying, even like lyrically, vocally rather, the tones that I use for certain words and certain patterns. I'm trying my damnedest to paint the story and make you feel the anxiety, because this is obviously named Chad for a reason, and I'm really trying to make you feel the anxiety that he is feeling, like losing the leg. Like that's apparently everybody's favorite line is, why is my leg over there? I'm trying to make you feel that anxiety that you would be feeling if
but again,
saw your leg over there.
I can tell you, as somebody who does not, you know, generally listen to this kind of music, you did. Like, it works, you know, and it's where I came away from it. You know, I ended up in a place of just like, I want to know more. I do not want to know more. I want to see more of this. Oh my God, please don't make me see more of this. Because like it's that, you know, it's like the person watching the horror movie like this, you know, where like they don't want to watch it, but they're watching it, you know, and it's kind of like that. It's just like, oh my God, you know, and being, and again, I'm not sure exactly what the chronology of songs on the album will be when it's released, these many months from now on Halloween, but like, you know, even if that's where we begin, you know, holy shit, like you are dropped in medias res. Like you're in it, your leg's over there, there's blood, he's coming back, oh fuck, what is going on? And like it whether that's something that happens as almost like waking up from being passed out and, you know, you've regained consciousness and you're in the middle of a waking nightmare, or something that happens way later in the story where we have all this, you know, build up with the guy, like it doesn't matter. Like either way, what you've set out to do, you did. Like, and yeah, and really, and again, you're not talking to someone who does this, you know, and as I was saying to Death Pigeon, you know, like people who are in metal, who live, eat, sleep, breathe metal, you know, that really get it, that are super familiar with it, you know, they talk to each other about metal and music in ways that's very specific. And it is like, as I've said, this language that twins speak, you know, where like people on the outside are like, what the, but they know exactly what they're talking about. Right. And I am a tourist, you know, and I can sit there asking where the library is. Right. But like, I don't speak the language yet. And like, what I keep trying to get across to you guys as I'm interviewing all of you is that if you can take someone like me who's never really listened to the genre in any way, shape, or form as much as, I'm sitting down and I'm listening to almost an hour of just super intense, boot to the face, holy shit, what is going on? Just growling, screaming, distortion, blast beat, blarg, whatever. And I'm enjoying it. How the hell did that happen? And so it's why when you guys say things like, oh, I'm not very good at this, I'm like, are you sure about it? Yeah, okay, because you're converting people like me. And that's part of why I wanted to do this show in the first place was, that you guys are beloved in the community already, people who know metal and both as Shovel Monster and Encircled Throne. But like from those of us on the outside, you're hooking us in. That's sit with that, like let that sink in, because that's not a small feat. Again, I'm a cover band girl, I write originals, but I never play them, and like, it's certainly not, a Chad Case kind of situation when I'm writing. And I like your stuff. I do. And like, that's, that I hope that makes you feel good, because it was really pleasantly surprising for me, to be able to go in there and go, okay, apparently I also like what I think is death metal, and who the hell knew? Like, who knew? So thank you for that, because I love learning new music and learning that I can like genres of music that I would have never, thought would resonate with me. And I think that to kind of bring it back and wrap it up is the fact that you guys do have a story, that you do have a plan, that this isn't just, hey, let's crank up the drums and get them as fast as we can and just go in there and, sound like, Cookie Monster being sucked into a turbine or whatever. And then like, we're out and it means, you know what I mean? Like it's so much more than that. It's got a story, it's got layers, it's got intention behind the instrumentation and the lyrics. And, you're creating a world, sonically, visually, lyrically, like that's not something you're necessarily going to turn on your average pop station and get, where everybody's just going, yeah. And I'm like, okay, yeah, all right, I guess. And then you're done, so I almost think of, that so much of your stuff and a lot of the metal that I'm listening to now is like, it's, there are symphonic elements, there are cinematic elements, there's all this stuff baked in. And you can't be stupid and do that. And you can't be untalented and do that. And you can't be unmindful or thoughtless and do that. So I just, I don't mean to go on and on, but I wanted to communicate to you guys. And I hope you realize that it's genuine, that like, I'm really like tickled that I like the music as much as I do, and it surprised the shit out of me, frankly, because I was like, okay, I knew what was coming when it was time to prep for Shovel Monster. I knew what was coming. I knew I was not going to be, braiding my hair and painting my toenails while I was listening to this music. And I was like, wow, yeah, no, I totally could. I absolutely could. It would have to be braiding in like barbed wire and black or blood red nail polish, whatever, but I'm down for that. That's fine. So this is my very long-winded way of paying you guys a compliment that, again, you could take somebody like me who's really new to the genre and your music is coming through. It's speaking, I think, in the way that I'm thinking you wanted it to, or you were hoping that it would. So it did that for me.
So far it seems to be connected, but it has boosted my confidence a lot, especially after Chad. And I've heard multiple people actually say that they have felt the anxiety from the vocals that I was producing that I wanted. So I'm glad it is actually translating, and it's not just me being like,
no,
and good job. But,
and I also think that, even especially, from one, vocalist to another, that, the ways in which your voice is different from the two singers prior, it works with this. You've got a real, there's an urgency to your voice, and there's a dimension to it where it could be really beautiful if you wanted it to, and you can make that really horrific if you want it to, and it works on both levels. And I think, sort of the tenor level that you get and the way that you're breathing and just building it all in, like it really it put me on edge, and that's exactly where I should be with a song like Chad Case. That's exactly where I should be. It should have me up here in the red, and it did. So you do not have to be doubting yourself at all on that. You did exactly what you wanted to do. And oh, holy shit, did I feel I'm an anxious person to begin with. So thanks a fucking lot, MoJo. And in that way that you guys were talking about it is kind of cathartic. You can sit there and you can listen to it. And even just on the level of, oh, thank God somebody else lives in that mental space sometimes too. And it's not just me. That feels pretty good too, to realize that other people.
I feel like any horror nut is gonna really enjoy this album.
I agree, and that's even just having the one bite that we all have of it so far. The one very gory, sinewy nibble that we've been given so far. So, okay, so I wrap up every show with a little segment that I like to call "In the Vox Seat." And I have 5 questions for you. I would like you both to answer them, okay? And as I keep telling people, you're probably going to hate at least one of them, all right? But that's okay. So if you had to sum up your music in 5 words or less, what would you say?
Probably just groovy, heavy, aggressive. 3 good?
Yeah, 5 words or less. That's less. So you're good. You're good.
Yeah.
Brutal,
groovy, heavy, aggressive,
heavy metal.
Okay, what was the first word? I talked over you. I'm sorry.
Brutal, groovy, aggressive, heavy metal.
If you guys ever do a side project, you need to call it the Brutal Groove or Brutal Groovy or something like that, because I just love those 2 words together. Because, groovy, you think of like, the hippies or whatever, and then like brutal is brutal. So, okay, all right, you guys did that pretty quickly. I got to say, most people hem and haw, but you were right there ready with it. And Mick with the economy of words there. So, okay, what is for both of you, what is your favorite thing about being a musician?
I think circling back to just unloading the stress, it helps that, get that stress off my shoulders and to be able to, come up with something that if I like it, I think I'm going to be happy with it. And if other people like it, then that's fantastic too. Mm-hmm. So I think being able to create music and have people enjoy it is obviously a plus, but so yeah.
So you do it largely for you, and then everybody else who also enjoys it just is icing on the cake.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we're, with the story and stuff, we're getting it a little more, to hopefully be listened to by more people, But yeah, ultimately I'm playing the stuff that I want to play and that I would love to listen to. And so just feeling, proud of the material that I'm putting out, and being okay with the material. Like I say, those couple songs, I'm like, not up to my snuff, and so just being, able to come up with stuff that I enjoy and like I say, and having a good time at it and releasing that stress and just enjoying the moment and, coming up with some stuff that hopefully people will enjoy.
All right, cool. Good answer. And the man behind the votes.
It's my happy place, as weird as that is to say.
Yeah,
especially for these
weird
vocals.
At all. Yeah.
Vocals. I mean, it is my happy place to be. I've never been happier playing music. Like being on stage, there's that first initial anxiety and nervousness, but I can't think of anywhere that I'd rather be than doing that kind of stuff.
Yeah. All right. So it just brings you joy. You can't get better than that, right? What else could be better? But okay, so we've got the flip side. What is your least favorite thing about being a musician?
Everything costs too much.
It's expensive, yeah.
Oh my God, right?
Well, yeah,
it really
and I got too many. You can only play one guitar at a time, but I gotta have like fucking 6.
Yeah. You can't.
Here we go. I was going to say, I thought I saw
there's all of mine.
a ton of gear in the shadows behind you. Yeah. Yeah, it does rack up. And
computer being $3,000 to be able to mix and master on. And that's just the
no
computer,
joke.
not the stuff that's in the computer.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. It's just the box, not the stuff that goes in the box that makes the box do. Yeah. Okay. All right. So that's completely fair. Okay. I think this is the question that most people seem to have the hardest time with. If you had to pick one album, just one, that you could listen to for the rest of your life, what would that album be?
Oh,
Justice for All.
Okay, you're going old school. Okay, yeah, particular track off of it.
To me, especially since I'm gonna have the entire album here, it's got the nice, pretty, one at the beginning of it, but then it has all the other heavy stuff. There's a lot of emotion that went into a lot of it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I mean, if I need to like check all my boxes, I mean, again, I'm a huge Metallica fan from back in the day, so
sure. Well, and I think most people think of that as their best album. So, although there's a bit of debate, it's definitely.
I mean, I love the Black Album and stuff like that too. But
right.
I could listen to the Black Album from start to finish. I can listen to Master Puppet start to finish, but emotionally and stuff like that, I think Injustice for All would. If I had to pick something,
if you had to, which you do,
like if you look at my Spotify playlist, there's artist after artist after artist. I don't listen to just one artist back to back to back to back and put it on shuffle. But if I had to pick, I guess one, if I'm being forced, I probably would pick that one.
You are. Aren't you glad? Aren't you glad that I've put you in that box and I've limited you in that way? No, but it's a good answer. All right, Mick.
Yeah, that's a good album. I'd agree with that. But I'd probably pick something from the Beatles. I don't know if I could pick an album. But it would be one album from the Beatles. Yeah, they're the number one album.
So, and it's good because your wife will be able to listen to it with you on the desert island or wherever you are. So,
yep.
Okay, so Beatles. All right,
Beatles
I wasn't sure which direction you were going to go, but okay.
For me, all their songs are different. Like,
yes.
It's amazing what great material they came up with, and it didn't sound the same as the last song, and it was just amazing. I really like listening to them just because it's so different. They had, and then this song has a violin in it, and this song has. Yeah. It's just crazy how much how dynamic they were. Yeah. As a 4-piece, but
like them and Queen, just the theatrical stuff that they did, and
yeah.
You hear one song, you're not going to think that you hear something. The next one, it's the same band.
Exactly. Yeah, it's not like you've heard one, you've heard them all. Well, and it's funny because in a way, even though you guys went with very different albums and very different artists, your reasoning was the same. Because what I'm hearing is that these are albums that you're picking because they feed you in more than one way. You've got emotional stuff, you've got softer stuff, you've got harder stuff, you've got different kinds of instrumentation, and it's more than one idea. Right. And I think that makes a lot of sense, especially if you're going to be listening to it for the rest of your life, over and over and over again. Yeah, absolutely. Okay. So last question here, and this may be the hardest one. Okay. Your toilet paper roll, does it go over or does the paper come from under? And you have
no mullet. Reasoning. No mullet for me.
No mullet. Okay.
No. Okay. Got to go over the top.
I don't care. I think my wife prefers it going over.
So you do not have. You're only the second person not to have a very strong preference.
I do not feel strongly about it. I'll set it on the counter for all I care.
Okay, you're that guy. Don't be that guy, MoJo. Don't be the guy.
I'll put it on there, and I'm pretty sure she likes it to go over.
All right, yeah.
You put the roll on your finger and just grab her.
But in the studio bathroom, it's just
spinning that wheel on The Price is Right or whatever. Just come out with toilet paper. Okay, so we've got an anti-mullet sentiment, and we've got an I don't care. I will just put it on the floor.
As long as it makes it as a hat.
That was there in reaching room.
You're like, as long as I can get to it, and I'm not using my slippers or my hand.
That's
yeah. Okay. All right. All right. Well, we've tackled the weightiest of all possible issues there. So I feel like there's nowhere for us to go but to say thank you both so much for coming on the show and for spending time with me. And I'm excited to, it sounds like we've got only a week or two out, before we wait for the next one. And then you're just going to keep feeding us morsels as we go. And then everybody's going to be looking out for the mysteriously titled album to be released over Halloween.
Mm-hmm.
And really go check out both Shovel Monster and Encircled Throne if you guys are not already. I know a lot of you watching already are familiar, but take some time. Probably not right before you want to go to sleep. And especially check out the Chad Case lyric video, and you just download them everywhere, stream them everywhere, follow them everywhere, enjoy them everywhere. Thank you guys so much for the chat, and the best of luck with everything.
Thank you so much for having us.
Yeah, we appreciate it.
You're very welcome. All right, guys, that's it for us. Thanks for watching Vox and Stix. We will see you next time. Bye.
Bye.